What's going on, everybody? American Football Network back here with another video today. And today we are bringing you our Tennessee Volunteers preview and prediction. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. Comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help me hit that goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of August. Make sure you guys check out our new shop. I'll leave a link for the card with the I'll leave a card with the link right here. So make sure you guys check that out. We got a bunch of cool products over there, a bunch of cool designs and stuff. If you have any design ideas that you want to do or product ideas, just send me an email and stuff that you think we should add. We love the feedback from you guys on that stuff. You can find my email on my channel page or in the description of this video. So let me know what you think. Go get yourself some cool merch. But let's go ahead and jump in with today's video. So Heupel, heading into his third season as the coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, 18-8 overall. They've been an offensive powerhouse under him. Tennessee may be one of the biggest resurgences under Heupel coming into this one. I think that they're sitting somewhere around the fifth best quarterback is where I think Milton is. So they come in pretty good. They got a solid running back room. It could get some improvement. The receivers are pretty good. The defense is what I'm worried about, though. Do need to get a little bit better defensively before they are in a spot to make some big moves. You look at the offensive totals from last season. They were first in the SEC in scoring at 46 points a game. They were sixth in rushing, sitting right under 200 yards a game at 199.5. They were first in passing offense at 326.1 and first in total offense in the SEC at 525.5 yards a game. But you flip to the defensive side of the football. They were sixth in scoring defense, allowing 22.8 points a game. They were second in run defense, so 115.8. So they had a pretty good run defense. They had some very good defensive linemen that ended up going on to the NFL. And then you look at the secondary, though, they were 12th in the SEC in passing defense, giving up 289.5 pass yards a game. The only two teams that were worse was Vanderbilt at 290.5, so allowed a yard more a game, and Arkansas at 294.7. Then you look at total defense, and Tennessee was 11th. They gave up 405.3 yards per game last season. The only other teams that were below them was Florida at 411, Vanderbilt at 461, and Arkansas at 465. So that is where they really need to improve, is the defense, particularly in the secondary. And they only return three of those guys from the secondary. They returned Donico Slaughter, the senior at cornerback. They returned to Marion McDonald, the senior at cornerback, and Jalen McCullough, the senior at safety. McCullough, that one's, I don't know how you would exactly pronounce that. But then you look at the receivers. They do lose the two big ones in Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, but they bring back Brew McCoy, the senior, Ramel Keaton, the senior at receiver. If you look at the offensive line, they have to replace left tackle and left guard, but do return center, right guard, and right tackle. Return the tight end Jacob Warren, and return the running back Jamari Smith and Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright last year he's the returning leader at running back as far as stats go. 146 carries, 875 yards, 10 touchdowns last season. So not bad at all. You look at Joe Milton's numbers from last season. 53 of 82, 971 yards, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. So they bring back some pieces. There's no doubt that Tennessee's going to have a very explosive offense. And we'll see if Nico Lamaleeva, however you say his name, the big recruit at quarterback, how much he gets to play in this game. I think they have some games early on in the season that he's going to get to play for sure and get some experience. I think Tennessee's in a good spot if Milton were to go down with injury. Now, we don't predict injuries when we go through, but you got to mention them. It's a part of the game, unfortunately, and Tennessee will be in a solid spot if something were to happen to Milton, if they get to the second string quarterback, because Nico is he's played great. You hear great things about him out of camp. So you would expect them to, he's not on the level where Milton's at yet, as Milton is I think a fifth year senior. Um, so he's not to that level yet, but he is. He's a solid backup, probably a better backup than most teams in the country have. I think Ole Miss and LSU might be the only ones above him. But they went 11-2 overall last season, 6-2 in the SEC. Got some uh, big wins. They beat Alabama 52-49 at home, won on the road at LSU 40-13. They beat Kentucky 44-6. So they had some good wins, beat Clemson in the Orange Bowl 31-14. They also had one bad loss. They lost at South Carolina 63-38 and lost to Georgia on the road by 2 touchdowns. So, they had a very good season last year. They beat Bama and they crushed LSU on the road. So they definitely had some big moments in their season last year, but still got to find a way to beat Georgia and win the East under Heupel. They're slowly getting there. They're building and building and building, and they're getting to the level to where they're going to start. I think competing with Georgia a little bit more. I think maybe this year they have a shot at them. But let's go ahead and jump into the schedule and see what we have going on and see what I have predicted. So week 1, you start out, you get Virginia. Virginia is probably the worst ACC team under head coach Tony Elliott. They're probably the worst ACC team. Had a very up and down season last year, a very weird season as well. Ended up getting cut short, unfortunately, after the shooting that happened up there at Virginia. I think it was 2 or 3 football players that died. It was a sad story. I can't remember all the details, but Virginia's in a bad spot with Tony Elliott right now. I'm not saying Tony Elliott is necessarily a good or a bad coach. So far, he hasn't proven anything. He's not recruiting well. They're just in a tough spot. And so I think Tennessee will have no problem at all against Virginia. I think they win this one easily. This one is in Nashville, so still basically a home game for them. But I don't think they'll have any problems with that one. And then they get Austin Peay at home. I have this game as a win. I think Austin Peay clearly cannot, it's kind of obvious. They're not going to be able to compete with Tennessee. This would be much like the Akron game last season where Tennessee won 63-6. Nico should get a lot of playing time in this game for sure. Then they go on the road to Florida. They beat Florida by 5 last year at home, 38-33. I think going on the road to Florida could be a little bit of a tougher environment because it will be a big game in Florida's eyes, although I don't think it's going to be that big of a game. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem for Tennessee. I don't like Graham Mertz at quarterback. So far, Billy Napier hasn't done a great job at Florida either. Trevor Etienne's pretty talented down there running back for them, but they don't really have a whole lot of pieces offensively. And again, I don't like Graham Mertz. I think he's probably the most overrated quarterback in the conference, and he's up there for most overrated quarterback in the country with guys like Keaton Slovis. So, I think Mertz is good enough to get Florida 6 wins this season, but there's no way they beat Tennessee. Tennessee rolls in this game. Then they get UTSA at home. This is a game that I say look out for because the very next week you get South Carolina at home. You got killed by South Carolina last year. They're going to be thinking about that game. They're going to be wanting revenge. It's going to be circled. And UTSA is a solid, very good Group of 5 school. They're a team that's going to be ranked in the top 25 at the end of the season. Now, I would say look out even more if they had Zachary Franklin, the wide receiver that transferred to Ole Miss, but they don't have him anymore, obviously, because he transferred. But I think Tennessee is clearly much more talented. I think they, should win this game, but this could be a potential trap game. You get UTSA overlooking them. You got South Carolina the next week, and bam, UTSA shows up, and in the first half they've put 28 points on you. Like it's a game that they could definitely lose if they go into it kind of sleepwalking a little bit. I don't expect that. I expect Tennessee to win by 14 plus points. I expect them to win this game, but definitely be cautious of this game. Do not overlook it if you're Tennessee. Then they get South Carolina at home. I have this game as a win. I think South Carolina is, they're a good team, but in Tennessee, it was 35-31 when Hendon Hooker went down. And so it's possible. Who knows? You can play this game all you want in college football, and fans love to do it in the offseason. What happens if he stays healthy? Do they beat South Carolina? Maybe. Who knows? But they hadn't led up to that point in the game, at any point in the game. So who knows? But this year, I think South Carolina loses some key pieces, specifically Jaheim Bell offensively. And then you look defensively. They lose Zach Pickens at defensive line. That's a huge loss. They lose Darius Rush and Cam Smith in the secondary. Those are two huge losses. And so early in the season, for them to replace that against an offense like this, I think Tennessee's going to throw for, I think Milton will have 350 plus passing yards in this game. South Carolina's defense, particularly the secondary, is going to be very suspect this year. And so I have Tennessee getting the win there. I think they win that one by, 10 to 20 points. Then they get a bye week. Then they get the Aggies of A&M at home. I have this game as a win. I'm not buying the Texas A&M overhype again this year. Well, I didn't really buy it last year, but I'm not buying it this year. Them in Texas are the most overrated teams every single year. Because Jimbo gets the number one recruiting class, they think he's going to be great. Now he's lost some of those players, the transfers, the rest of them haven't been developed. We'll see what Connor Weigman can do at quarterback for him. I think A&M will be a solid team. I think they'll get to a bowl game this year. I don't think they're going to miss out on that, but I don't see them at the level of being able to beat a Tennessee team that is going to be a very high explosive offense. Then they go on the road to Alabama. I have this game as a loss. Going to Alabama is going to be a much different environment than this game was played in. Last season when it was at Tennessee. I think going to Alabama is going to be a very difficult environment to play in. I also think that, Nick Saban generally doesn't lose to the same teams 2 years in a row. History's shown that. He just doesn't lose those games 2 years in a row, especially to these big teams like Tennessee. I think Bama's going to be ready for that one, and I think they're going to find a way to win. I think they're going to be more physical than Tennessee and dominate them on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And I think, Tennessee very well may have a hard time passing against that secondary highlighted by Kool-Aid McKinstry. So I have Alabama with the win there. So first loss of the season for Tennessee. Then they go on the road to Kentucky. I have this game as a win. I think Kentucky's like a 7-5, maybe 8-4 team. I like Devin Leary at quarterback for him, but to me, Kentucky doesn't really upgrade from Will Levis last year. If anything, they stay the same. They lose some more pieces around the quarterback position, and so I think Kentucky is gonna, they'll be a solid team. They'll still win 7 games at the lead, 6 to 8 games, somewhere in that range, maybe 9, but that's really starting to push it. But they're just not going to be able to compete with Tennessee. I don't think so. A big win for Tennessee. I think that one finishes similar to what it did last year, 44-6, something like that. Then they get UConn at home. I have this game as a win. UConn is a team that they're actually slightly on the rise, you could say. Won 6 games last year, made it to a bowl game. That is a very good season for UConn, especially what's happened in the past for them and in recent history. That is a very good season. And UConn is, they're getting a little bit better each year, but they're obviously nowhere near where they need to be able to compete with Tennessee. I think Tennessee rolls much like they did against UT Martin last season, 65-24. I see it a similar score in that range, 63-21, 50, 59 to 17, something like that. They'll roll in that game. Then they go on the road to Missouri. I have this game as a win, but Missouri's going to be better than a lot of people think they are. It's not going to be one you can just lollygag in there with the eyes closed and expect to come out with an easy win. I don't think Missouri can beat Tennessee, but I definitely think that they can push them for 2.5 quarters. So Tennessee got to be a little bit cautious of that one, but I still think they hang 60 on them and beat them by 40. Then Tennessee gets the big game that they've been looking at and circled for the last 3 years. They get Georgia at home. What happens in this game? It's at Neyland Stadium. It's going to be a very, very loud atmosphere, very difficult atmosphere to play in. But what is going to happen in this game? I have this game as a loss. I think Georgia is just going to be the more physical team. The defense is still going to be as good as it was. Georgia's going to control the game and the clock, and they're going to prevent Tennessee from really being able to just put up 40 points. Even if Tennessee wins, I don't see a scenario where they put up 40 points on Georgia. I just think that Georgia's going to be able to control the game. Tennessee's got to get stops, hold them to field goals, make them punt the ball. That the kind of thing everybody knows that you need to do to win a football game, but especially against Georgia, you can't let them control the clock against you. And I think that Tennessee's going to have a hard time with that. And I think Georgia's just going to be the more physical game and control the entire football game. And I think that's going to be difficult for Tennessee to do, to overcome. And then they close out the regular season with a game against Vanderbilt. I have this game as a win. Vanderbilt's getting a little bit better, but they're still a bottom feeder in the SEC. They're not going to be able to compete with Tennessee, who is, a top 4, top 5 team in the SEC. They're just not going to be able to compete with that. They're not to that level yet. But that wraps up the regular season for Tennessee. I have them going 10-2 overall, 6-2 in the SEC. So another good season for Heupel. That'll be good enough to have them maybe top 10, definitely top 12, top 15 for sure. I think Tennessee's going to have another good season. And, I think that they're going to be, they're going to be in the conversation pretty much the whole season for potential college football playoff. Obviously, the game they got to win. Obviously, they need to win all of them, but I think that they can lose one, but they really got to beat Georgia is the one that they got to beat. They have to beat Georgia if they want to go to the playoff. But that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you comment what you thought down below and what you think Tennessee will do this season. I appreciate all the support, and we'll see you guys next time.